We've got a great class to get us going today. If you joined us yesterday for the showmanship and the dough show, you know how good it was. And so I was really excited to get kicked off back here in our market show today. And we start off, we've got 3 classes here in our market dough division and a really nice class to get going. And I think this class comes together really nicely. We've got a pair of them out here that are opened up. They're bold, they're stout. Compositionally, they handle better with more muscle, with more tone, with more shape up high. And then whenever you get the 2 opened up stout ones up top, then the young lady's up front that's going to lead us off. That one's the best built, best looking one from the profile. She's taller shouldered. She's better in the set of her knee. She's more collected and more even in her top line and longer and leveler out of her hip with the more attractive hind leg. For me, that one does the best job of combining mass, dimension, and power with a little extra look and design from the side in comparison to the one that's coming in behind her. The one that's coming in behind her, man, that one's got an awesome rib cage, and that one is very bold coming out of the back of her shoulder. She handles incredible over her loin, and she's actually the biggest pin, stoutest hip one whenever you get in behind the lineup. Whenever you get off to the side of her, she's a little forward in her knee. She wants to run downhill. She gets a little tighter in her spine and wants to pull her hock in and get a little more rigid in the use of her hind leg. And she just doesn't have the same look of balance and quality from the side as we see in our class winner. Now, I actually like the build quality of the one coming in third just a shot better than the one that's going out right ahead of her because she is taller shouldered. She's later in her maturity and she's more correct really off both ends of her skeleton. She's just not built with as much width through her lower skeleton. We need to see her more opened up through her chest. We could see her a bit bolder in her rib cage and more shapely from behind in comparison to the 2 that go out ahead of her. But whenever we compare her to the one that's coming in behind her, she actually has that advantage with a little more foot and bone and feature to go ahead and stay over the one that's coming out here in 4. The one that's coming out in 4, dead level down her top line, really smooth in the way that she's made. In this class, she needs a little more time, a little more maturity to bulk up because she comes off as the frailest one. She's also the flattest one that's the plainest in her muscle shape down her back. So I thought an awesome class to get us started off with. Congratulations to those exhibitors here in our lightweight market dough class. Good job.
Here's your results out of lightweight class 1 for our goats. Blue ribbon winner includes Lainey Meyer from the Wayne FFA. Purple ribbon winner to Sebastian De La Cruz from Lakeview FFA. Second purple goes to Wyatt Envelson with the Beatrice FFA. And first purple goes to Baylor Barons with McCool Junction FFA. Middleweight dough class number 2 entering the ring from 64 to 71.5 pounds.
Another really nice class that we've got out here in our middleweight market doe division. We've just got 4 of them, but I'm telling you, top to bottom in this class, these 4 does are all really, really nice. And the one that we've got to start off whenever she came in, that is easily the stoutest one and the most dominant in terms of her feature. You get up in front of her, she's the stoutest skulled, she's the biggest footed, she's the biggest in her forearm. That's the big bladed, opened up, round body doe that's got the most muscle and spread down her back and out of her hip, and just combines everything together with more stoutness and more dimension than the rest of them in the lineup. Now, does she get just a little tight in her spine? Yeah, probably. Is that one just the most perfect in terms of her front knee set? Probably not, but I think we can maybe pick apart these other ones in terms of their structure either. And so whenever that one is still acceptable, still in that what I would call that window of acceptability in regard to structure, maybe just a tweak or two, and just that dominant from a power and mass dimension and feature standpoint, I think she needs to go ahead and start. Now, the spot back doe that's coming out here in second, she's great ribbed and really fresh handling. I like the fact that she's just a little tighter shorn. I think that helps her handle quality. Whenever you get on top of her, she comes out of the backside of her blade with a square, fresh, crisp shape over her rack, same way to the edge of her loin. Still plenty stout enough out of her hip. Whenever you study her, she gives up quite a bit just in terms of foot and bone and feature. Whenever we watch her go, she really wants to pull her hock in from behind, and she's just not as just overwhelming in the width of her lower skeleton in comparison to our class winner. And that one, I'm glad you're showing her and not me, because that one would be a little frustrating to get presented out here. She just doesn't want to stay in line for you. But I do like her body shape, and I like her extra spread up high in relation to the ones that are coming in behind. The Cape-fronted blonde doe that's coming next is tall-shouldered, really good in her look up front, and probably the neatest looking one in terms of her front end design of any of them that we've got out here. I think she progresses with more hip shape than the one behind her. But then as we compare her to the ones that are up the front of the line, she's a little flat in her body shape. She needs to be bolder. She needs to be rounder coming into her forerib. Even though she's got some shape up top, it needs to be with just a little more spread, a little more width up high. She, too, just like the one that goes out ahead of her, pulls in her hock, and at times she'll get just a little straighter and more rigid in it. The one that we're going to round out our class with, I like the build of this doe, and I think she's got a lot of quality. She's very good in her skeleton. Whenever she gets out and goes, everything is built right, and she's really smooth in her makeup. I think that one, as I look at that one and project that one out, I think, hey, that one's going to make a really nice breeding doe. Now, we put her in a market division, and she does get just a little closed up, a little bit flatter and more nondescript in her muscle pattern in comparison to the rest of them, especially from behind, up top and from behind. That's where she's not as bold. She's not as just awesome in terms of her hip shape either. But I do think a good class of them there, quality top to bottom, and there was awesome. Congratulations to those exhibitors on a nice job.
And our final weight of heavyweight does is set to enter the ring from 84 to 109 pounds. Our division of our heavyweight does will be selected after this. And, of course, the finals will take place this afternoon at the final drive at 3:30. Results of middleweight does on Class 2. Purple ribbon winners will go to Logan Heigenkamp of the Arlington FFA. Third purple goes to Berkeley Nelson of the Central City FFA. Second purple to Peyton Hartman of the Adams Central FFA. And congratulations to Caitlin Rezak of the Central FFA with first purple out of the middleweight doe class.
Well, a nice class of them as we get ready to wrap up here in our market doe division. We've just got 3 of them represented here in our heavyweight class, but really, whenever you study all 3 of them, you can find an obvious class advantage for each and every one of them that we've got in here. And I think that makes it fun to sort just based on the quality level up high. The young lady that's going to go ahead and start, I like that doe's balance, and I really like her build. And whenever you think about any species, whenever we're showing females in the market division, yeah, we want boldness, we want muscle, we want stoutness, but still, just like in the market weather show that we're getting ready to kick off in, I want them good built, I want them good looking, and I want them designed right, and I think that one does the best job of that. Because whenever you study them from the side, whether they're at the standstill or whenever they're in motion, she's tall-shouldered, she's good in her neck set, that doe still opens up into a big rib cage and center body, and she touches with some mass and some freshness and some squareness up high. Maybe not the most overwhelming in terms of hip shape whenever you get in behind her, but I thought that one definitely has enough muscle, and then to combine it with her extra quality of build and design from the side and freshness allows her to start. And you do a really nice job getting her shown and presented out here because she looks the part whenever you get off to the side of them. Whenever I'm getting ready to throw them in line, you do a nice job getting her set up. The one that's coming out here in second, this one's probably the boldest bodied, most opened up, and most expressive one that we've got out here in our lineup, and she's got more pin width and she's got more hip shape than the one even that we lead off with. Now with that, she's a little shorter neck. She's a bit more jammed up front for the kind of body mass that she has up high. She gets a little frailer in her bone work down low, and she's just not doing this guy any favors, and it's just a little harder to get a good read on her and a good look whenever we're over there on the profile, and she doesn't have the same look of balance as we see in the one that we lead off with. Now, the doe that's coming out in 3, like I said, each and every one of these has a class advantage, and this one's whenever you go to the surface, she's the biggest footed, she's the stoutest in her bone work and the most rugged in her feature, and if you know me, you know I love that whenever you study them and they're big and stout at the ground. Now, as we work up from there, the problem with her is she's also the flattest ribbed, flattest bodied one right in behind her shoulder that gets the most off behind her shoulder blade and the steepest out of her hip, and so all of those things throw her out of balance a little from the side. But at the ground, really like her. As we work up from there, we need more boldness of body, and then whenever we get her in motion, she comes apart too much in our top line, and it just throws her out of balance from the side. I thought a good set of them to wrap up here in our market doe division. Those exhibitors did a great job in our heavyweights. Congratulations to all 3 of them.
All right, time to bring back our 3 class. No, we don't have division classes on this.
Oh, we're picking our champion.
Are we? No, we wouldn't. Here's results of your heavyweight does class. Purple ribbon winner to Taylor Engel from the Scottsbluff FFA. Purple 2 will go to Briar Crawford from the Cross County FFA, and Purple 1 goes to Hudson Schmidt of the Elma FFA. The selection is underway for the overall division of our market does to head to the final drive this afternoon at 3:30.
Well, we've got a nice way to kick off our goat show here today in our first division drive of the day in our market does. We had three really nice classes, and even though all three of them were relatively small in numbers as far as the numbers that we had in each one of those classes, I thought the quality was extremely good, especially out here on our top end. And sure, there's some differences in type and kind, but as you look down the lineup, I think there's some good stuff that we've got out here to pick from, and we're going to select a top three to send to our grand drive here this afternoon. The one that we started off our first class with, that one does a good job of combining muscle with shape and progression, and still a very neat look from the profile. And what I like about her, and coming out of that class, there were two of them that had the right kind of muscle, that had the right kind of shape, and then her build quality allowed her to get around the spot back toe that was over there around the far side. Now, obviously, the lightest weight one out here probably comes at a little bit of a deficit just in terms of maturity and horsepower in comparison to some of these other ones. And then whenever you get right up in front of her, she's probably not as opened up at the base of her chest, and she's not as big bladed as either one of the two that follow her. But I absolutely love that one's design from the side. And then whenever you go in and get your hands on her, her freshness and tone and touch up high, I think is really impressive. The one that comes out of the second class, that was probably the stoutest one out here in our lineup. She is really opened up. She is super bold bodied, and she is so massive and overwhelming in regard to her handle quality, and that's what allowed her to come out of that class. Now, whenever we plug her out here in this lineup, and we even talked about the one that was second in that class probably having some build advantages in her. And we talked about our class winner. She's not perfect in her knee. She's not perfect in her top line. You could lengthen her out of her hip just a little bit. So if you wanted to pick on her, you're going to pick on her in regard to her build. But I thought that one made it out of that class because she is so massive and so good in her rib shape and so good in her muscle. And I still think that one is pretty impressive out here in regard to all those things. We just need to fix her build and her balance. We just talked about our heavyweight class and the young ladies doe that started off that group of them. Really good from the side. I like that one's look up front. I love her top line balance, and for me, whenever you study one that hooks her neck that high onto the top of her shoulder, can maintain her levelness and consistency of top line like she does, her length, her levelness of hip is so good, and because she's built so nice, that allows her to get out and go and maintain that same look of balance. And I'm going to tell you, that's not just a good looking one that's too flat, because she's a good looking one that whenever you get up in front of her, she's opened up and square through her chest. She's got a big rib cage laid in her. She sets up with freshness, squareness, and muscle shape up high. She wasn't the biggest hip one that we had in that particular class. She's not the biggest hip one that we've got out here in this lineup, but I think definitely one that represents the right kind of build, the right kind of body shape, the right kind of tone and freshness up high whenever you go in and get your hands on her in a heavyweight, late maturing package that stays very sound and very correct. I thought we have a great set of class winners and a good set of seconds over there to back them up. Like we talked about in those classes, how each one of them over there on the far side have a lot of quality to discuss. And so I'm going to go ahead and pick a top three out here. I think our champion and reserve are both very, very nice. I think it's a pretty clear-cut decision, in my opinion, for the two that need to come back as champion and reserve. And I think our third overall is going to get pretty close, and I think that's a little more challenging decision. So I'm going to set this down. We're going to select your champion and reserve. We're going to get you a third overall as well in this division. These young people have done a great job getting us kicked off in a very high-quality fashion here in our Market Goat Show. If you would, congratulate our Market Doe exhibitors by giving them a nice round of applause, and we're going to get a top three.
there's a chapter written down.
If they're up here, I can follow along.
I have Cross County, Hudson, Alma,
That would-
and
And your champion market doe exhibited by Hudson Schmidt from the Alma FFA. Your second place reserve,
Baylor.
who's that? Is going to Baylor Barons from the McCool Junction FFA. And your third goes to Brian Crawford from the Cross County FFA. They'll be headed to that final drive this afternoon at 3:30. We're continuing on now with our weathers. This is lightweight class number 1. They're weighing in from 57.5 to 66 pounds.
nice class of lightweight weathers that we've got to work with out here. And probably for me, the pair of them that soared up, I think it's very close, and I think there's some challenge between the pair because they have very, very contrasting advantages out here. There's some stark differences just in terms of type and kind. The one that's going to lead off, he's better built, he's better balanced, and he's better designed. And whenever you study him up front, he's more correct in the set of his shoulder and knee. He's more consistent in his top line, and his hip and his hind leg is a definite upgrade over the one that's coming right in behind him. Whenever you get up on top of him, that wether's not built with as much width and as much muscle as the one that's coming into, but he still handles pretty good. And whenever you get right out of the back of his shoulder, he's pretty strong, pretty square right there. His loin edge is square, and it ties in good into his hip. He's not overwhelming, but I thought a substantial upgrade in build and balance to go ahead and lead us off. Now, what makes it close is whenever I get off either end of this Cape-fronted wether that's coming out here in second, easily my favorite up top. In his width, in his body shape, he is by far the freshest and best handling one. He's beautiful in terms of his presentation and his hide quality. His build's not as good, and he wants to come forward in his knee. He wants to just get a little bit too tippy in his front end skeleton. He's too steep out of his hip, and his hind leg's not as good. And then he's got some build issues, and then he wants to sull up and doesn't want to go, and that just kind of further emphasizes the fact that, hey, he's kind of tight top, steep hip, and not good enough off either end to go ahead and get around the one that we'll lead off with. But standing still and up on top of them and handling them, I like him the best. His build quality, his attitude, and the way that he gets out and goes lands him in second. The one that's coming out here in three, good-looking one from the side, tall-shouldered, elevated, better out of his hip than the one that goes out right ahead of him. He, too, wants to get just a little forward in his knee whenever you study him, and he needs to be set back and more correct in his front-end structure. And of the top three, he's also the flattest-bodied and the greenest in his body shape, and he needs to be just a little rounder in his forerib, and he needs to be set back more correct at his knee. The one that's coming next, pretty solid kind of goat. He's sound. He's decent bodied. He's just a little immature out here, and we need to see just a little more time and bulk to him. He does get just a little plain up front. He's a little flatter in his body shape as well. And so I think he just needs some more extra pieces to go ahead and work up the line and a little more neatness of design up through the front end of his skeleton. Real solid one again coming out next. Big-footed, heavy bone, kind of a practical built one that's got some lateness, some maturity to him. He gets too plain in his handle quality, especially coming right out of the back of his shoulder. He doesn't have that square, bold, fresh shape that stands up like some of the ones up high, and he wants to pull in his hog. Real stout one that for me just isn't quite sound enough, and he's a little too quick and early in his maturity pattern. And then one that we're going to round out with that just needs a shot more muscle to him. Congratulations on a nice class.
In the ring now is lightweight class number 2 for our weather goats from 68 to 72 pounds. The results coming out of class 1. Blue ribbon winners include Berkeley Nelson of the Central City FFA, Allison Rezak of the Central City FFA, Central FFA. Purple ribbon winners will go to Colby Hartman of the Adams Central FFA, Coley Cutlers of the Central FFA. Purple 3 goes to Wyatt Evelson from the Beatrice FFA. Purple 2, Carrie Saney from the Norfolk FFA. And first purple to Preston Bobenmeyer from the McCook FFA.
Well, another nice class of them here in our lightweight division. It doesn't take long to get it whittled down to the pair of them that are going to come out in 1 and 2. Really, I think both these goats are very, very nice, very high quality. Whenever you get off to a 3/4, right here where I'm at right here, that's where our class winner wins. He's bigger in his chest. He's much fuller and bolder coming into his forerib, and his rib cage is just a upgrade in terms of the one that, in comparison to the one that comes in second. He's bolder. He's rounder in his rib. He sets up with more spread coming out of the backside of his shoulder. And then whenever you step off to the side of him, his lower body, his flank line design is better than the one that comes right in behind him, and his top line balance is better. Even though both of them we could pick up in their tail set just a little bit, the way that he blends from his loin into his hip, he's much smoother and more flush right there in his jump muscle. All those things allow him to be the upgrade in terms of balance and smoothness from the side. And then whenever you get off to a 3/4, he's bigger in his rib cage, he's bolder in his forerib, and so the combination of those two things allow him to go ahead and start off. Now, I like the hind leg better of the one that's coming out here in second. He sets out square. His design and the set and travel of his hind leg is actually better than the one that we lead off with, and I like that about him. This goat's a little green. He's a little raw. I think he needs a little more time because whenever you get off to a 3/4, he's a little flat in his rib cage. He's not as bold coming out of the back of his shoulder like we talked about. He pinches too much right there where his loin ties into his hip, comes up in his jump muscle, and like we said about both of them, needs to be picked up in his tail set. And so I think just from balance and body shape, we need to modify him to go ahead and switch that pair. Here's a real stout one coming out next. He's moderate, he's wide, he's bold-bodied. He is built like a little market hog, and I love his body shape, and I love his spread down his back, and he's got a big old hip in him from behind. Now, he's a little jammed up front. He's not quite as good in terms of his hip and his hind leg design. His balance isn't as good, especially as the two that go out right ahead of him, but that goat is very, very good in terms of his basics of width and body shape and muscle and tone to go ahead and get around the rest of them that come in this class. I thought 4 and 5 was a good decision here in this class. I like 4's look and extension from the side and his top line balance and his extra bone in comparison to the one that's coming right in behind him, where he gets into trouble in comparison to 1, 2, and 3. He wants to fade too much and get too flat to his pin set, and he gets too flat from behind. And we need to see him more opened up, bolder in his body, stouter out of his hip with just more natural muscle, because he's the flattest one of our top 5 that we've got out here. I just like his build and his pattern and his extra bone and feature in comparison to the one that's going to round out our top 5. The one that's going to round out our top 5, he's bolder bodied, bigger pin, stouter hipped than the one that goes out in 4, needs more bone, needs more feature, and then whenever you watch him get in motion, his top line just is not hanging him good enough, and we need to strengthen him in behind his shoulder. He gets too steep out of his hip. If we put a good design and a good top line in him with a big, stout, square hind leg, then I think we can move him up a spot or two, but the way he sets, his design and his feature needs to be just a shade better here in a real tough class. As we work on down, I thought this class top to bottom was very competitive. The top end quality was extremely good. We've got some goats over here that just need more muscle. They need more shape. Hopefully that as they continue to mature, that'll come with time. Today, they did come off just a little plainer and more nondescript. Congratulations on another very good class. Again, top to bottom, awesome set of exhibitors to work with.
Enter the ring right now is your light class 3 from 73 to 79 pounds to results of class 2. Blue ribbon winners include Jacob Gisbera from the Wilcox Hildridge FFA, Laney Meyer from the Wayne FFA, and going to Peyton Hartman from the Adams Central FFA. Purple ribbon winners will include Wyatt Envelson from the Beatrice FFA, along with Dylan Higby from the Lee FFA. Third purple goes to Bryson Petzilka from the East Butler FFA. Second purple was exhibited by Addison Vavrachek of the Schuyler FFA. And congratulations, first purple goes to Clara Johnson from the Palmyra FFA. Again, in the ring is your lightweight class 3.
Well, yet again, another high-quality class to wrap us up here in our lightweight division. I think we've got a nice set of them, but still, the one that tops us off, I think, does so pretty quickly. That goat is very high quality in his design and build from the side, and there's your look at him. Proportions, his lines, the design of his hip and his hind leg is awesome, and so he is the high-quality built, best balanced one in here, and then you get up on top of him, and it's nice that he's the boldest, the freshest, the most muscular one that handles the best as well. And so we talked about whenever we get him in motion, I like the design of his hip and his hind leg whenever he's at the stand. He gets a little stiff-necked and he wants to jam forward on you just a little bit, and so I'm having a little bit of a harder time getting a read on it, on his front end design, where I just wish he'd kind of just settle and then get out and go. But that go right there, he's really nice, and I think he wins and does so very quickly. The one that's coming out here in 2, I thought 2 and 3, that's a nice pair of goats. The one coming out in 2nd is big-footed. He's rugged boned. You go to the dirt, that thing's got some paws on him now. I like that. I like his body type better than the one that's coming right in behind him, and he's longer and leveler out of his hip. Now, in comparison to our class winner, he's not near as fresh, he's not near as good in his lines, and he just doesn't have the same level of quality like we see in our class winner, but still, I like that one a bunch, still going out in 2. The one that's coming out in 3 has a nice shape to him up high. He's got a nice little turn right there to the side shape of his leg, and compositionally, I think he's pretty solid. He gets a little closed up through his chest and at his knee. That goat's a little drier in his center body, and whenever you study him back through his rear rib and flank, he wants to get a little pinched right there and a little drier and harder and shallower, and then he gets a little steep out of his hip as well. The one that's coming next is opened up. He's stout. He's very, very muscular. With that, though, he doesn't balance the same from the side as those ones up the line. He gets a little jammed up front. He gets a little bucked over at his knee. That causes him to break in his top line and get too short and steep out of his hip. I like his muscle. We've got to build him just a bit more correct to go ahead and push the initial trio just a bit harder. To round out our top 5, we do have one that is built more correctly. He is big-footed. He's stout in his bone work. Honestly, doesn't handle too bad whenever you get up on top of him. He's just too flat in his rib cage and just too narrow built whenever you study him on the front side or back side of him, and we could change him out of his hip just a little bit as well. But biggest thing is we've got to see him wider. We've got to see him bolder in his body shape. As we work on down a nice design goat that gets too plain in his handle quality and a little frailer in his bone work, and then another one that we just need to stouten up in his handle. We need to stouten him up off both ends. Congratulations. That was a good way to wrap us up here in what's been a great Division 1. I'm looking forward to getting those class winners back out and getting you a top 3 here in our lightweight division.
It's time now to make our division winner for our lightweight weather goats. Here's your results. So coming out of class number 3. Blue ribbon winners include Braylon Wickhorse from the Syracuse Dunbar Avoca FFA, Jalen Hoppy from the Westholt FFA, and Bentley Myers from the Wilbur Claytonia FFA. Purple ribbon winners also include Berkeley Nelson from the Central City FFA. Purple 3 to Hadley Picorni of the Wheeler Central FFA. Purple 2 goes to Faith Engel of the Gering FFA, and first purple to Taya Hamilton of the Nebraska Ag Academy.
I really like our lightweight division drive. I think quality represented in 3 classes out here, and I had a good time sorting through each one of those classes because we got to use quality, we got to use good ones on the top end of every class, and our 6 that come back out and represent us are very, very nice, and especially our class winners. We'll talk through them real quick, and then we'll get you a champion and reserve and third. We started off in our class 1 here in our weather show, and that one set the tone and the pace for the kind of build, the kind of quality, the kind of balance and design that I really like. I think that goat, whenever you studied him and the angles of his build, the angles of his skeleton, how he props up from the side with that really good look and his lines and design, I think he's really nice. Now, we talked about him. He was not the most muscular one there in that class, and that's what made it close between the pair of them that are coming out in 1 and 2 out of class 1. And then whenever we get him out here against some that probably do represent just a little more muscle, a little more width and shape and stoutness, but I still think quality-wise, you back off to the side of this lineup, his lines and his balance, really, honestly, is probably good as any of them that we've got out here. The paint goat that comes out of that second class, another very high-quality pair, and probably one of the closer decisions that we had amongst our lightweight division was getting that pair lined up. I really like this wether. Whenever you study him from the side view, he's really good in his look up front. His design and his balance and his smoothness, I think, is exceptional. We talked about him. You get off to a 3/4 of that pair. He's bold-bodied. He sets up with spread and shape out of the backside of his shoulder. He's very good in his top line balance, where he comes out of the back of his shoulder, where the heel of his loin ties into his hip and his jump muscle. Everything is very smooth, and that just affects their balance so much whenever they are just awesome in terms of their smoothness and their lines and their top line balance. It's really nice whenever you get off to the side of him. His lower body and his flank line sits in him. Really, really good as well. We talked about both of the pair in that class needing to be picked up in their tail set, because this goat, he does get just a little steeper out of his hip, and he kind of ducks his pins, and his hind leg wasn't perfect. But, hey, I still thought that pair was really, really good. And then whenever you get off to a 3/4 or studying from the side, they needed to go the way that they did. The one that comes out of that last class, I thought pretty clear-cut decision, probably the easiest class winner that we had here. And I think that one, for good reason, was the easiest class winner in there, because from the side, that one is good build. He's great in his balance, and he's good in his lines. He's got a real stout foundation. Whenever you study him down low, he's big-footed, very heavy-boned and big-armed, and he's got a big blade working in him. That goat, whenever you get up on top of him, what's impressive about him is the tone and the firmness and the freshness that he touches with. Man, you can bounce a quarter off that thing's back. That thing is hard, and he is ripped up, and he is awesome in the set of his loin and the width and squareness of his loin. You study him out of their hip, that is the big pinned, opened up, stout-ended one that we've got out here as well. And to still combine the most power, the most handle quality, the most expression with a really neat and balanced and proportional look from the side, I think makes him a pretty unique one out here in this lineup. We talked about how he could probably just get out and go and just not hesitate, and he's a little tentative up front in the way that he holds his neck, and he wants to shuffle just a little bit out of his front end skeleton, and I wish he'd just kind of relax and settle and be more comfortable out here in the ring. But I'm telling you what, a good set of them that we've got out here as far as class winners to pick our top 3 in Division I from. I am very impressed with the quality. I'm excited to pick our top 3 that we're going to send to the Grand Drive here later this afternoon. And I'll tell you what, if we ended the show right now, hey, we'd have 3 really, really good ones to have to pick from here in this division. Congratulations to all of these exhibitors on a nice job. If you would, put your hands together for our 6 of them that we've got out here. We've got a nice set of thirds, too, that are backing us up over there on the far side. I'm going to set this down. Let's get you top 3.
And congratulations, headed to that final drive this afternoon at 3:30 to represent the lightweights. First, we'll go to Taya Hamilton of the Nebraska Ag Academy. Second, exhibited by Clara Johnson from the Palmyra FFA. And third, Addison Beverchek from the Schuyler Central FFA. As we continue on this afternoon, we're moving on to our middleweight wether goats. This will be middleweight class 1, and they range from 80 up to 83 pounds.
Got a good class up and to kick off here in our middleweight division. A good pair of them that are sort up 1 and 2. I think both of these goats are very high quality. They're fresh. They're bold-bodied. Compositionally, I think they're the ones that you need to get sorted up pretty quick here in this class. But I still think once you do that, they still need to split. And the young man up front, he needs to win because this goat's build quality is better than the one that's coming in behind him. That goat's taller shouldered. He's neater up front. Whenever we get him in motion, that goat's hind leg is a substantial upgrade in comparison to the one that's coming in behind him. The set of his hock, the set of his rear ankle, the reach and range of motion that he's got, I think, is exceptionally good. And then you get up on top of him, that goat is crisp. He is fresh. He is very, very expressive. I really like that. He's always kind of down-tailed, and it just throws his hip off just a little bit from the side, and the way that the plane of his hip is, and he does almost pull his hock in just a little whenever you get directly in behind him. But I wish he just kind of cranked his tail up and was a little more proud of himself out here. But that one, I do think, needs to win this class whenever you add up the freshness, the look, the dimension that he's got with a substantial advantage in hind leg in comparison to the one that's coming in behind him. The one that's coming in behind him, he is wide, he's bold, he's stout. Man, he's got a big hip in him whenever you get in behind him. His pin width and the turn and shape that he's got through the center and lower part of his leg is absolutely outstanding. I love that about him. He's really a goat that runs uphill. Neck set's pretty good. Tail set's in him really nicely. He's not quite as good in the set of his knee, but the biggest thing about him is his hind leg design. The set and curl of his hind leg, he's got extra set and curl to his hind leg, and then he's pretty rigid in his rear ankle in the way that he goes. And so standing still, I think you can see it just a little bit. He's not as attractive in the set of it. And then whenever we get him in motion, I think really tells a story that, man, his hind leg just needs to be just a shade better to get around one that I think's awfully nice that we win with. The one that's coming out here in 3, that's a good-looking booger from the side. This young lady does a good job getting him shown and presented out here. He is fresh. He is spot on in terms of his presentation and his hide quality. He's really thin-hided. He's really clean and bright white, and you can tell this young lady has done a good job with him at home. The problem is whenever we get him in a tough class and he's hooked up against 2 that just have more horsepower and bulk to him, he comes off a little frailer. He comes off just a little bit flat-bodied and too narrow in his base. And whenever you study him off both ends of his skeleton, man, as much as I like him in terms of his quality, he is not bold enough or wide enough. As we work on down between 4 and 5, I think a white-eared goat coming out next. He's big-armed. He's stout-featured. He's a goat that runs uphill. I like that about him. He gets a little dry to the edge of his loin, and he doesn't handle as fresh whenever you get right up on top of him, and he gets too steep out of his hip, and it throws off his balance from the side. The one that we're going to round out our top 5 with, he's another one that I like his tone, and he's actually touches back just a little fresher than the one that goes out right ahead of him. He gets just a little off in his hip and a little uncoordinated in his hind leg, and then whenever you study him coming right at you, he wants to close up at his chest and at his knee. Real stout one coming next. It's just a little coarser in his makeup, and he needs to be better in behind his shoulder whenever we get him in motion. Good looking one that gets a little stale, and same thing with the one that's coming out next, and then some goats that we just need to power up and see a bit fresher in regard to their muscle tone and their handle quality to work up here in a tough class of middleweights. Nice job to these exhibitors. Congratulations. If you would, put your hands together as they work their way out.
Ready for entry now is middleweight class number 2, weighing from 84 up to 86 pounds. Blue ribbon winners coming out of class 1 include Drake Lemke from the Freeman FFA, Sebastian De La Cruz from the Lakeview FFA, Baylor Barons from McCool Junction FFA, Jalen Hoppy from the West Holt FFA, Bridget Cavan from the York FFA, Quentin Myers from the Cambridge FFA. Purple ribbon winners will include Logan Barda from the Meade FFA, Lizzie Lambert from the Crawford FFA. Third purple is to Keaton Fadig from the Brady FFA. Second purple goes to Taya Hamilton from the Nebraska Ag Academy. And congratulations, first purple out of middleweight class 1, Corbin Seabrant from the Pierce FFA.
Another good class as we work a little deeper here into our middleweight division. I probably thought the trio of them that we've got out here struck me with just a little more uniqueness whenever they came in the gate. And for me, they line up really nicely and everything's pretty clear cut between 1, 2, and 3. Black-headed goat that starts off, you get up on top of him at a top 3/4 shot. That thing is the boldest rib. He's the best and most expressive in his shape all the way down his back. He's got the biggest, stoutest, squarest pin set that sits the most up high. And then whenever you study him from the side, because he is so long, so level out of his hip, and his pin sets up in him the right way, the length, the levelness of his hip, the way that his tail sets on him, that really enhances his look of balance from the side. So up on top of him, he's the bold rib, big-bodied, fresh-handling one that's got the big, stout, square hip in him. And then whenever you get off to the side of him, that goat is very collected and awesome in his top-line balance. The length, the levelness of his hip, I think, is phenomenal. Now, he's not the hairiest-legged one or the biggest bone one that we've got in this class. Really, we've got some freak show bone ones that are up in the top 5. But whenever you study him, he still has enough to balance out just right from the side. And what makes that goat very good is his body shape and his squareness up high, and really his hip design, I think, is awesome. The one that's coming out here in second, for his front 2/3 from his hip forward, that goat's really nice, and he is presented beautifully. You have done an awesome job with his skin and his hair, super, super fresh, and that really, whenever he comes in, I can't tell you how much that impacts a first impression whenever you get him clean like that, whenever you get him taken care of and have that kind of hide quality, have that kind of hair quality in him. Man, it makes a good first impression on me as a judge whenever he first comes in the gate. And that is one tall-shouldered, long-necked one that he does have more bone and more feature than the one that we lead off with. And even though he's fresh in his handle quality, and he's dang sure a lot fresher and crisper than the one that's coming right in behind him, he's not as opened up and as round in his rib cage. Whenever you study him out of his hip, he gets too steep, short and steep out of his hip, and he's not near as opened up to his pin set, and he doesn't have the same kind of stoutness whenever you get directly in behind him in comparison to the one that we lead off with. So hip forward, I think it's competitive. Hip back, and whenever you study the design of his hip, just the steepness of it and the fact that he's not as big in his pin set and as stout out of his hip, I think it makes it a pretty routine call to go ahead and leave him in second. The one that's coming out in third, that thing's got some monster feet and some monster bone on him. And I'll tell you what, I wish every goat that we had on our place had that kind of foot size, that kind of feature, that kind of bone and mass and hair down low. I would be one tickled cat, I can tell you that. Now, with that, whenever you start putting that extra dense feature and that extra hair in him, you go up high, we lose too much shape. He gets too plain in his body shape. He gets plain in his neck. And whenever you go in and get your hands on him, he is the plainest and most nondescript in his muscle shape by some margin in comparison of the top 3. But I thought his build and his stoutness at the ground was pretty unique and just hit me a little harder whenever he came in than the ones that are going to come in behind him. The one that's coming in next, he's a little trimmer. He's probably just a little leaner and crisper in his shape. For me, that goat gets just a little frailer in his bone work. He gets a bit flat in his body shape. He doesn't have enough twist whenever you get in behind him. He fades too much to his lower leg. This goat's got more muscle and width that we're going to round out our top 5 with in comparison to the one that goes out ahead of him. For me, he gets too plain and too deep in his chest floor. He loses his top line, gets too steep out of his hip. He is very massive in his rib cage and his center body, and he doesn't match it and complement it with enough bone down low for the kind of mass that he's packing up high. I think a good set of them that we got to work with there, quality top 5, and a good set of goats that we've got over here on the side view as well. They get just a little plain and a little stale and more nondescript than the rest of them that we've got, and probably could use just a shot more quality. But again, I thought an awesome class. These exhibitors did a great job. If you would, put your hands together for them as they continue to work their way out.
And our final middleweight class, this will be class number 3 of our weathers from 88 up to 91 pounds. Results coming out of class number 2. Your blue ribbon winners include Julie Luby from the Seward FFA, CJ Meinberg from the Seward FFA, Alea Pampernick from the Ord FFA. Purple ribbon winners will be Maya Carey from the West Holt FFA, Drew Saney from the Norfolk FFA. Purple 3 goes to Brooke Carey from the West Holt FFA. Second purple is to Jace Allen from the Scottsbluff FFA. And congratulations, first purple out of middleweight class 2, Taya Hamilton from the Nebraska Ag Academy.
Well, a good class to wrap up here in our middleweight division. I think top end quality again, really nice. I've been very impressed with our middleweight division thus far. Just good ones keep coming class after class, and the depth of quality in here is really nice. And I think some goats that are built with quality up top, and the young man that's going to go ahead and start us off. He does so pretty quickly for me. Just like your last goat, man, he is high quality in terms of his presentation. He is tall shouldered. He's good boned. He's good featured. He's way stouter at the surface than the one that's coming right in behind him. He's the freshest bodied one whenever you get in and get up on top of him, and he's got a good spread down his back and out of his hip. And we could change him in his hip just a little bit. It's just the length, the levelness of his hip could be just a little bit better, but he's still built with width and mass and freshness and shape, and just comes with way more bone and feature than the one that's coming out here in 2. I thought probably a little closer decision for me came between 2 and 3, but whenever we get him on the walk, the goat in 2 is much neater in the build of his front end skeleton. He's way better chested. He's way wilder necked, and then he's way more consistent in his top line balance. And really, if we put a big foot, a stout bone column, and more hair on that goat, I think he gets very competitive here in this class, because really he's bold bodied and he's got some spread up high. He's thick ended. He's good necked. He's good looking, and he's fairly good in terms of his skeleton. He just gets too skinny legged, and I'd like to see him bigger footed. I'd like to see him stouter in his bone work. It throws him out of balance too much for the kind of mass that he's packing up high. Gets too fragile in his bone down low. This goat's built stouter at the surface, and that's what makes it close, because I like this goat's foot. I like his bone. I like his stoutness. The set of his hind leg is attractive for me. He gets too plain up front. Whenever we get him in motion, he'll drop out in his chest floor. He gets a little open at the base of his shoulder. He's plainer. He's thicker necked. His top line balance doesn't hang in quite as strong. And then whenever you go in and get your hands on him, I think he's got plenty of muscle, but where he blends from his loin into his hip probably needs to be just a little bit smoother there. As we work on down, here's a nice looking blonde goat from the side that is really nice in his elevation. He's smooth. He's good built. He just needs more muscle, because of the top 5, he's the lightest muscled and plainest shape. He gets a little flat from behind and turns his hock in. The goat that we're going to round out our top 5 with, I like this kind of goat that's big rib. He is chunky middle. He's awesome in his shape up high, and he looks like a little fat steer. And I know that probably western Nebraska isn't chock full of feedlots like for goats like they do steers, but if they were, I'd like to have this kind. He's moderate. He's big-bodied. He looks easy feeding. Compositionally, he's got a lot of muscle. He just doesn't have enough extra quality to get up the line any higher. He's a bit low-fronted. He's a little plainer there in the design of his chest. He gets a little weaker in his top line. Could probably use just a shot more bone work down low, but I like that kind of stock, practical, good-built stock that's got rib, body, muscle, and function to him. We just need more quality in him to go ahead and work up the line. As we work on down, I think some goats that we need to see just a little bit fresher coming next. One that's good looking, that gets a little flat and plain, and there's lower skeleton coming. And then as we work on down, just some goats that need to be built with more width and body shape to go ahead and work up the line here in an extremely tough class in our middleweight division. Nice job again to these exhibitors. Congratulations.
All right, we're ready to bring our purple 1 and 2s in to make the selection of your division and reserve for your middleweight class. Again, that final decision will take place at 3:30 this afternoon during the final drive. Here's your results of your middleweight class number 3. Blue ribbon winners include Bryson Padzulka from the East Butler FFA, Ethan Hildenkamp from the Arlington FFA, Addison Lemke from the Freeman FFA, and Sebastian De La Cruz from the Lakeview FFA. Purple ribbon winners will include Kaylee Gawk from Loop City FFA, Hudson Schmidt, Alma FFA. Purple 3 goes to Braylon Workhorse from the Syracuse Dunbar Avoca FFA. Second purple was Lauren Johnson from the Palmyra FFA, and congratulations. First purple out of Class 3 goes to Jace Allen of the Scottsbluff FFA.
This has been a fun middleweight division drive to work through, and our class winners come back out. And honestly, one of the more challenging decisions that I've had thus far as getting these lined up. I don't necessarily think it's very hard to see the differences between the goats. I think that's fairly easy to tell, but I do think each and every one of them offers a lot of good. They're very, very different. Each one of them maybe has just a little something that I tweak in them in comparison to the other ones that we've got out here, and so that's what makes it challenging. I'm going to talk these, and we'll talk our class winners and probably dig in them just a little deeper than we have in some of these other divisions, just to let you know what I'm thinking of them. And because I think all three of them are in the mix out here, and I think you can justify doing some different things in this division. The advantages that lie in the one that wins Class 1, I like his bone and I like his feature whenever you study him down low. That is genuinely the stoutest one out here at the surface. He's got a big foot. He's got a big arm. He's got a big blade to him. I like that goat's look of balance whenever you step off to the side of him because he runs right uphill. Neck set is good. He's very strong coming out of the backside of his shoulder. Whenever you get up on top of him, he's been beautifully taken care of because he handles incredible coming right out of the back of his shoulder. I think he's as fresh and as square out of the back of his shoulder and then over his loin as any of them that we've got out here. Now, in comparison to some of the ones that are right in behind him, and we even talked about him in class, he gets just a little steeper there out of his hip, and from his hook to his pin, we need to pick him up just a little bit. He's a little that way anyway, and then he's always a little down-tailed to go along with it, and he pulls his hock in just a little from behind. So if we're going to change him and we're going to tweak on him just a little bit, we're going to change the design of his hip and his hind leg. But if you overlook the fact that he is awesome in terms of his feature, he's the big boned heavy duty one in terms of his build, and then runs uphill with a incredibly fresh shape and square tone up high, I think you're missing the boat on him, because I think there's definitely some things in him that can allow him to win this division, and in my mind he's a big time player out here. The one that wins that second class, and we talked about him, whenever you get up on a top three-quarter of him, he's very impressive. He's very bold-bodied. He's another one that's incredible in the way that he comes out of the back of his shoulder. I like the length. I like the squareness of his hip and his pin set. Really, in comparison to the goats that sit on either side of him, he's the best in the plane of his hip where he's hook and his pin sit. He's the best in where his tail sits in relation to both of these on either side of him. Because he is so perfect in his top line and he's so good in his underline balance, his upper body balance and the design of him from the side, I think, is exceptional, and that's what makes him a player out here. Now, whenever you get up on top of him, like we talked about, he's very good coming right out of the back of his shoulder. Probably isn't quite as perfect right there to his loin edge in comparison to the goat that's right ahead of him, even though I like his hip design better than the ones that sit on either side of him. We get him in motion, and you study him at the ground. He's the frailest, smallest footed one that we've got out here, and he's really not as attractive in his hind leg set. He's got just a little extra set to his hind leg, and so if you want to be a little more critical of his skeleton, you could say we could stouten him up just a little there at the surface, and he's got just a shot of extra set to his hind leg that's maybe not quite as attractive in the way that he gets out and gets motoring out here. But there's your look right there. That guy is beautiful in his upper body balance. He is great in his lines. That his body shape in combination with that definitely makes him a player out here. The one that comes out of the last class, I've got to compliment this guy right here, because every goat that he's shown has been a 10 out of 10 on freshness and presentation. Hide quality, hair quality, you can tell it takes a lot of time to get his goats ready, and you do a good job at home all the way through the summer. And what I like about showing livestock is the people that put in the time at home and the effort at home more than anybody else, and keep their pens cleaner, keep their waters fresher, keep their goats cleaner. Whenever you show up at the show, they're going to pop whenever they come in terms of their hide quality and their hair quality, and I want to commend you on the awesome job that you've done with all your goats. Now, I like that one's foot and his bone and his feature. That goat's built with width and power. He handles with a lot of shape. whenever we talk about him in comparison to the other ones, all those things are all those good things about him are why he's a very competitive out here. But whenever you back off to the side of him, he's the steepest out of his hip. That go whenever we get him in motion or you get off to the side of him and get out of him or a front view, he's not as tucked up. He's not as neat in his chest floor. It's just as shallow right there from the top of his blade all the way to the bottom part of his blade. We could change him there. His lower body balance and his flank line, I would call it uniform at best. These other two goats wedge a little better in their lower body. But that goat is very high quality. I don't want to take anything away from him here in this lineup because the level of quality between our class winners is very, very high. Those are the differences that I see in him. I'm sure around ringside, everybody's got their favorite. Hey, if I was standing behind any one of these or if I had something to do with any one of them, I'd think, hey, what's that guy doing taking so much time out there? It's easy because I know that each and every one of them have a lot of great things to them. Those are the differences that I see. I'm going to give them one more look. We're going to get you top three here in our middleweight division. These young people have done an exceptional job with their projects out here, getting them shown, getting them presented. Three great showmen that we've got out here as well on the front line, and good showmen that we've got out over there on the back line as well. Congratulations to all six of them that make it back out here. I think it's a three-horse race for our top three spots, and it is very close, and the margin of difference is very narrow. And there's some, like I said, there's some different things that you could justify out here. I'm going to go ahead and get out and pick my three favorites, and we're going to send our top three middleweights to the drive this afternoon. And our middleweight division, in my opinion, I think is going to be very well represented. Again, nice job to these exhibitors. Please put your hands together and give them a nice round of applause for the quality set that they've got out here.
Headed to that final drive this afternoon at 3:30. First out of the middleweight class, we'll go to Corbin Seabrand of the Pierce FFA. Second is Tatea Hamilton from the Nebraska Ag Academy. And third, Jace Allen from the Scottsbluff FFA. It's now on to our heavyweights this afternoon. We will have three classes of our heavyweights. Class 1 coming in, weighing from 92 to 95 pounds.
Nice class to kick us off here in our heavyweight division. Quality up top's really nice, and I think our ones up top fall together really nicely. The black-headed goat that's going to go ahead and lead off. I think pretty clear-cut decision in here. He's stout, he's bold, he's wide, he's massive. That goat from the three-quarter shot right here is big-chested, he's big-bladed, he's big-ribbed. I like the fact that he's got a big square back and a big square hip in him. Really like the design of his hip and his hind leg to go along with that as well. Now, he's a little fat and crusty-necked, and I'd like to see him just a little neater there from his blade forward, but I still think from there back he's pretty dominant in here, and he is really, really nice other than that. The one that's coming out here in second, top line balance is really good. Lower body lays in him nice. I think he's got just a little more strength and consistency of top line, length, levelness of hip. Hind leg set is more attractive than the one that comes out right behind him. He's not as good in his blade shape. He's not as big chested whenever you get right in front of him. We need to tuck him up, see him a little shallower and shorter bladed and just bolder right there in his blade shape, and probably just doesn't have the same kind of bone work of the one that we lead off with. Stuck and standing still, I like this goat coming next. He's fresh-hided. He's got a good handle to him whenever you get right up on top of him. He's very good coming out of the back of his blade. I like that a bunch in him. A little frailer in his bone work, and he loses his top line. He does it sometimes whenever he's set up, but this young lady does a good enough job keeping him together that most of the time that doesn't happen. But then whenever we get him in motion, of the initial trio, he gets the weakest in his top line. He gets the frailest in his hind leg with the least attractive set to it whenever we get him set in motion. And so I think it's little things that are going to keep another really nice one there in third. I thought between 4 and 5, a good discussion there. Goat that's coming out in 4, he's more muscular. He handles better than the one that's coming right in behind him. He gets a little plain in his balance, a little off in terms of his height, and then he gets a little flat-footed from behind, and he's not as attractive. One that we're going to round out our top 5 with is probably just a little more attractive in its design from the side. Gets a little fragile in his bone work, and he doesn't have the same kind of handle quality up high, especially right in behind his shoulder. Then we get over his loin. This goat's nice looking from the side. Gets a little pinched in his forerib, a little flat all the way through. And then some goats that we probably could just freshen up just a little bit in regard to their handle and their muscle shape and tone. But a good class of them. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Entering the ring now will be heavyweight class 2. They will weigh from 97 up to 102 pounds. Here's your results coming out of heavyweight class 1. Blue ribbon winners include Levi Finn from the Twin River FFA, Arabelle Rossmeyer from the Shelton FFA, Baylor Barons from the Cool Junction FFA, and Jace Johnson from the Bloomfield FFA. Purple ribbon winners will be Taylor Engel with Scottsbluff FFA, Brooklyn Dennis with the Syracuse Dunbar Avoca FFA. Purple 3 is Justine Pope from the Shelton FFA. Purple 2 goes to Taryn Sudik from the Bishop Newman FFA. And first purple, congratulations to Allison Vavracek of the Schuyler FFA.
As we work a little deeper here into our heavyweight division, as we get into these heavyweight goats, it's a little harder to keep them fresh. It's harder to keep them toned than some of those lighter weight divisions. And so composition, freshness, and general muscle tone is going to sort a lot of these heavier weight classes. The saddleback goat that's going to go ahead and start off, he's bold-ribbed, he's big-bodied, he's got muscle, he's got shape. I think he's one of the 2 or 3 muscular goats that we've got in here that's just a little bit better in terms of his hip design than the one coming in behind him, and he's square in his hind leg than the one that's coming out here in 3. He's starting to show just a little more maturity up front in his neck and in his chest, and we could maybe see him just a little fresher there, but I still think in relation to the class that we've got, I think he's the one that has the kind of body that's got the kind of rib and handle quality with still keeping his skeleton in check to go ahead and lead us off. The Cape-fronted goat coming out here in 2, I think he's a little more toned and a little more expressive in his muscle. I think he's just a shade leaner than the one that goes out right ahead of him. He just doesn't have the same kind of look of balance from the side. He gets a little off in his top line. He gets too steep out of his hip, and he gets too deep and pronounced in his chest floor and his breastplate, and all those things just don't balance up quite good enough whenever we get off to the side of him. The dapple one coming out here next, he's got a good look to him from the side, and he's got some muscle to him whenever you get off either end of him. Maybe not quite as fresh in his handle, and then whenever we get him in motion, he's the least square in his hind leg. He really wants to bow his hind leg, and we've got to see him a little more correct in the hip and his hind leg structure. As we work on down, another one that's nice looking from the side. He's tall shouldered. He's late in his maturity. He gets a little tight topped. He wants to pull his hock in, and he gets a little stale in his handle. The one we're going to round out our top 5 with, depth of body, practicality, soundness is good in him. A little too frail in his feature and too flat in his body shape and too closed up underneath to go ahead and work up any higher. And then a pair of red goats that we're going to round out with that I think both of them, if they just had more muscle and they had more freshness and shape, I'd say we could work them up the line a little higher. Congratulations, another good class. These exhibitors did a heck of a job for us. Nice job to them as they work their way out. Good job, guys.
Entering the ring now is our final class of our market weathers. This is heavyweight class number 3 from 103 to 117. After this, we'll make the selection of our division that will head to the final drive later this afternoon at 3:30. Here's the results of a heavyweight class 2. Blue ribbon winners are Ryan Henry from the Waverly FFA, Alexa Nickel from the Fairbury FFA. Purple ribbon winners include Chloe Cutlers from the Central FFA, Noah Peppermick from the Ord FFA. Purple 3 goes to Brooklyn Dennis of the Syracuse Dunbar Avoca FFA. Second purple exhibited by Lauren Richards of the Shickley FFA. And first purple, congratulations to Seth Wirt from the Central City FFA.
Well, as we wrap up here in our last class of the day, what a good heavyweight division it's been, and I think we got another top ender here that starts off pretty quickly. The young lady's Kate Fronted Goat, whenever he came in, that's the big, broad-chested one that's big-bladed, and he's big-ribbed, and easily the fresh-handling one that we've got out here that's the best in his composition. He's got a big square back in him. He's got a big square hip, and I like that whenever you get in behind him. Bone and feature in him is good as well. We could change him out of his hip just a little bit, and whenever he gets in motion, he does want to duck his pins, and I'd probably like to see him get out with a little more athleticism out of his hind leg, but I still think that one wins. Very clear cut to go ahead and start him. And I think from there, there's some good goats in here, and I think the one that next probably most closely mirrors our class winner in terms of muscle and spread and feature is the one that's coming out here in 2. Now, he's not as wild in terms of his look up front, tucked up in his chest floor, and he too gets just a little steeper out of his hip, but whenever we compare the 1 and 2 to the ones that are coming in behind him, he's a little wider, bolder built with more muscle down his back. And the one that's coming here next, kind of the same story goes in him. That goat's built with some width of skeleton to get to this heavy of a weight. He still maintains his composition very nicely. He's still lean. He's still trim. He's still got cutability to him. Now he gets a little frail in his bone work, and for this weight and for his maturity, we've got to see him stouter at the ground. We've got to see him stouter in his bone work, and he gives up just a little bit of top line consistency. It gets a little easy there whenever you step off to the side of him. But again, composition keeps him over the ones that are coming in behind him. Here's a big, stout, rugged, big-bodied, sound, real practical, easy feeding one coming next that for me, he gets a little past 12 o'clock. He's too mature up front, wants to drop in his chest floor, get a little flatter and deeper about his rib cage, and we need to see him probably just a little closer to a little more immature look than we do getting him past 12 o'clock. One that's coming next, neater from the side. He's taller fronted. He's more elevated. He's more tucked up there in his chest floor. Get right up on top of him and get your hands on him, and that's where he gets beat in this class. He's too plain and too apex coming out of the back of his blade, and he wants to get just a little pinch right there at his loin. That goat's not built with enough muscle in relation to his weight whenever you get right up on top of him. Again, as we work on down in this heavyweight class, we've got some goats that maturity is just catching up to them, and they just get too plain and too nondescript in their shape. I'm sure if we would have seen them 3-4 weeks ago, they'd maybe be just a little bit fresher. But again, congratulations on a good way to end us out. We've had a good set of heavyweights, and congratulations to these exhibitors on the final class of the day.
We're set to line them up to bring them in for the division selection. Again, the finals will happen this afternoon at 3:30 during the final drive, located in the Beef Arena behind us. It results out of heavyweight class number 3. Blue ribbon winners include Kelsey Luby from the Seward FFA, Ellen Schmidt from the Fairbury FFA, and Cody Luby from the Seward FFA. Purple ribbon winners will be Faith Engel from the Gering FFA, Samantha Schmidt from the Fairbury FFA. Purple 3 exhibited by Natalie Peppermint from the Ord FFA. Purple 2 is to Jackson Jordan of the Cambridge FFA. And first purple to Kelby Rasmussen. Congratulations with the Boone Central FFA. Are you good to go with me reading it? Your heavyweight class 1, first place was Allison Vavracek of the Schuyler FFA. Second place class 1 was to Taryn Sudik of the Bishop Newman FFA. Heavyweight class number 2, Seth Ward of Central City FFA. Second place was to Lauren Richards of the Shickley FFA. Heavyweight class 3, Kelby Rasmussen of the Boone Central FFA. Class 3, second place went to Jalen Jordan of the Cambridge FFA.
Good division drive to wrap us up here in our GOAT show. And just like our previous few divisions, we're going to have a really nice set of heavyweights to send to the grand drive out of this set of 3 classes. We started off with our Class 1 winner, and I thought those 2 GOATs sorted up pretty quickly, but still pretty clear cut in which one needed to win that class. Big-footed, heavy-boned, big broad-chested one that's real good ribbed and good bodied. I like the design of his hip and his hind leg. I like that about as good as any of them that we've had out here. The length, the levelness of his hip, the stoutness, the squareness, the set and travel of his hind leg, and the way that he gets out and drives off of it, I think is really good. And to pair that with the kind of power that he does, I think is pretty impressive whenever you get right up on top of him. Now, with that, we talked about him up front. Even though he's an extended goat that runs uphill, he's got a little short, jammed up neck on him that's just a little fat and cresty, and I wish we could see him just a little neater there from his blade forward if we're going to pick on him. But I think from there back, there's a tremendous amount of good in that goat, and really his neck doesn't really fit his body because he's very long-bodied, he's very long-hipped, and his proportions get thrown a little bit off because of his neck. But hey, from there back, I like that. I like that goat a bunch. Saddleback goat that comes out of that second class. I thought that class just got sorted off the ones that were compositionally correct, that had muscle in them, and that was the boldest bodied and the most muscular goat that we had in there that was leveler out of his hip than the one that came in behind him. Now, as you compare him to the 2 goats that sit on either side of him, maybe not as elite in terms of his look and his balance from the side, but still, that's a practical, good kind of stock that represents a good heavyweight goat that's got the kind of lateness of maturity to still maintain his composition. And I like the extra extension that he's got. And honestly, I like goats that have the kind of skeleton that can get to a heavyweight and maintain their composition. Honestly, we're getting away from that just a little bit, and I'm not out here preaching, but I do like, as we get into these heavyweight divisions, all 3 of our class winners still maintain their composition for heavyweights. The one that wins that last class, pretty clear cut in there as well. That goes wild looking up front. He's good necked. He's good chested. That thing's awesome in his body shape, and you get up on top of him. He has got an incredible handle coming right out of the backside of his blade. That goat's built with muscle. He's built with width. Again, I thought that one pretty clear cut decision there to get him sorted up there in that class. And we talked about him. His hip and his hind leg design wasn't quite as good. He gets a little tentative. He gets a little rigid from behind, and he wants to duck his pins and gets too steep out of his hip. And so, again, if we're going to change that one, that's where you do it. His hip and his hind leg needs to be just a little bit better and more athletic at the go. I think a good set of them that we've got out here in our heavyweight division. I thought we ran across some very, very tough decisions and some challenging decisions that we've had throughout the day. Our heavyweight division, though, is not one of them. I think there's a clear-cut winner. I think there's a clear-cut second. I think third probably gets just a little closer between a couple of them. I'll set this down and I'll show you our champion in reserve one time. You guys have been great around ringside all day, and these exhibitors have worked their tail off all summer getting these goats presented the way that they did today. Put your hands together for them, please, for a great heavyweight division. Let's get you 3 to send to your drive.
So congratulations, headed to the final drive this afternoon at 3:30. Representing the heavyweight division will be Allison Vavracek from the Schuyler Central FFA. Second goes to Kelby Rasmussen of the Boone Central FFA. And third, Taryn Sudik from the Bishop Newman FFA. Again, don't forget, final drive 3:30 this afternoon.